Welcome to the sixth lecture, lecture number 6 of this master course, Renewables in Electricity Markets. And today we are going to talk specifically about ancillary service markets, or in general we can call it reserve markets. This is one of the topics that I and my team, we have been very active in the recent years. In collaboration with several companies in Denmark and Europe. And, well, if you want advice from my side, it's that there are several companies or many companies in Copenhagen, in Denmark, and in Europe, and maybe globally, part of, or big part of their trading strategies or business models is based on these markets, ancillary service markets. So, well, I think it's a good advice for you that make sure that you have a good understanding of these markets. It will help you in your current or future careers. I hope you agree with me. Good. So this is our big picture we have talked so far. You've seen this slide several times. So in the blue part on top, day-ahead markets and intraday markets. Most of them, they are being cleared by market operators, by NEMOs, nominated electricity market operators, for example, Nord Pool. Of course, we discussed that, for example, in the case of day-ahead market, it's a pan-European market. Also, in the case of intraday market, we have at least 3 auction-based intraday markets, while also a big part of intraday market is continuous trading. So we discussed about order books, etc. We discussed about that last week. Then in the bottom line, in the green boxes, we have markets being handled by TSOs. For example, Energinet in Denmark. And soon we will see that also in those layers, we have some European initiatives to clear the market, not just for a country, but in a European level. So we are going to talk about that. So about balancing market, we discussed last week in lecture 5B. And today, the focus is on ancillary service or reserve markets. Good. Also, we are going to interchangeably, we are going to call it capacity markets for reserve. Because at some point of time in advance, TSOs, they buy capacities for various types of reserves. So that's why it's also called capacity markets for reserve. So if you saw some papers, they are talking about capacity markets, especially in the context of balancing. Please don't, make it... Don't confuse with the other capacity markets we discussed for security of supply. This is a capacity market for reserves. Okay? Good. So I would like first to have a recap of our previous lecture, because I think this is slides from previous lecture. It provides a good reminder of what we discussed last week, and then we are going to build on top of that in this lecture. So imagine a specific hour on day D, right? And TSO wants to operate the power system in this hour. So what happens, we saw that a day before, I think in Denmark it's 7:30 a.m., but always this time is changing with different regulations. But if I'm not wrong, today it's 7:30 a.m. TSOs, they buy reserves. So the TSOs, they clear reserve market or capacity market for reserves to procure various types of ancillary services. What these ancillary services are, we are going to talk about that this lecture. From whom? From balancing service providers. Whoever can provide flexibility, can provide reserve. It could be conventional generators like gas-fired power plant. It could be hydro. It could be even renewables. It could be aggregation of flexible units like electric vehicle aggregators. It could be energy communities. So they sell ancillary services to the TSO for each hour H of the day. And actually soon, even in this month, it's going to be 15 minutes. So here I'm talking about hourly resolution, but soon, if it hasn't been implemented yet in March, it will be 15 minutes intervals. And among different services, there is one service that we are going to talk about today. It's called Frequency Restoration Reserve, FRR. So what is that? We are going to talk more on that today. So here, a day before day-ahead market, TSOs, they buy different types of reserves. Then say that after the market clearing, there is a market clearing there, uniform pricing. Say that one BSP, flexibility provider, it's booked for, I don't know, for example, 1 megawatt of a specific type of reserve, right? That's the market clearing outcome. So what happens next is that still on day D-1, at 5 p.m., this unit should provide the TSO its first activation price. For example, saying that, you see 5 p.m., it's after day-ahead market. So for example, this gas unit that I provided an example, it can tell to TSO, if you activate me for upward regulation, requesting me to provide 1 megawatt more, increase my set point, for example, from 10 megawatt to 11, my activation price is, for example, 30 euro per megawatt hour. And also, if that unit is providing downward reserve, also activation price for downward. Is it clear? And then until 25 minutes before the real time, before the underlying hour, or 15 minutes, the underlying interval, this unit can update its activation price. Okay? And then we discussed about something called voluntary bids. It means that there might be some flexibility providers, some flexible assets who for any reason didn't manage to sell flexibility in the capacity market at 7:30, still they can submit voluntary bids up to 25 minutes ahead of time. And here their bid will be, okay, how much reserve they can provide and what is the activation price. Is it clear? And by the way, I didn't mention you, in Denmark and in many countries, you cannot just say to reserve market saying that I'm selling reserve. You have to be pre-qualified for reserve. So TSO should evaluate your assets that yes, you are flexible enough, and then you are eligible to participate. So for conventional units or for batteries or whatever, well, it's natural that yes, they can. But for example, if you are aggregator of flexible units, it's not that very clear that yes, you are flexible. What is your flexibility range? Then you should go through the pre-qualification process of Energinet. Okay? So even these voluntary bids, they should come from those who has been identified eligible for reserve market. Good, and then in the real time, the TSO, when needed, activate reserve providers from the cheapest to the most expensive in the case of upward regulation. And in the downward regulation, it will be opposite. Right? Because in downward regulation, if you are activated, you should pay to the DSO. So the balancing price today is set by the activation price of the latest BSP reserve provider activated. For example, let's say that we have a flexibility needs of this. For example, this system has 10 megawatt deficit. So TSO starts by first activating the cheapest reserve provider, but it's not enough, then the second one, then the third one. And now this is enough, and this is now the balancing price. So these three are activation prices that the TSO received until 25 minutes ahead of time. Is it clear? But soon it will be changed. I'll tell you why. Because in the current setup, the balancing price has only been computed for based on the energy activation of resources called MFRR. What are they? I can tell you soon. But manual frequency restoration reserve. But also we have something called AFRR. So if you heard me state that, okay, TSOs are changing the way to form balancing price, it's because the balancing price should be able to reflect the energy activation of two different types of reserves. Today, they only reflect the energy activation of MFR. What these words are, I can explain you soon. So, I hope it was a good warm-up for you. A recap from previous lecture to start building on this contents. Okay, so what you expect to learn in this lecture, the list of things that you can expect, the learning objectives are, hopefully after this lecture you will be able to explain why we need ancillary services and what different types of ancillary services we have. That's the first learning objective. Hopefully, then you will explain the various reserve markets and services in Denmark. Then, hopefully, you will be able to formulate and solve the reserve market clearing optimization problem. This is the last piece of what you need in your assignment 1. So after this lecture, you have all the knowledge to fully complete your assignment 1. Okay? And then finally, hopefully, you will be able to analyze how reserve markets influence the subsequent markets, including day-ahead market and balancing market. Good. So the outline is that first, we are going to talk about ancillary services and the various types of these services. Then we are going to talk about ancillary services specifically in Denmark, in Europe and Nordic countries. We are going to talk about reserve market stage, activation stage, and also the outlook on the need for, on the growing need for reserve in Denmark. Then we are going to learn a bit about optimization problem for reserve market clearing. You will see that it's not much different than what you have developed so far for other markets. And then my interesting part, and I thought yesterday to add it to this slide, Energinet has, as the Danish TSO, has very nice initiatives this day about balancing. And I would like to share these initiatives with you. Good. Okay, let's start with various ancillary services. So, why do we need ancillary services? These services are essential for TSOs, like Energinet, to ensure the reliable operation of the power system. And when we say about operation, for example, I took this snapshot from Energinet website, and it shows the Danish power system operation yesterday at 3 p.m., 3:15. And you can always go to Energinet website and see what is the exact operation, the live operation situation of the transmission system in Denmark, and how much power export and imports happens at the time. And then, if you need ancillary service data, as I said, it's the TSO who runs these markets in both reserve stage and activation stage. You can go to this website. It's Energy Data Service. It belongs to Energinet, and you can see a lot of data in this ancillary service point. Okay? Good. But what are the ancillary services? In general, there might be more, but the three main categories of ancillary services are as following. The main one is frequency supporting services. So at any point of time, there should be a balance between consumption and production in the system. If you have that balance, then always the frequency is 50 hertz. And in the US, it's 60 hertz. So you can imagine that if there is any imbalance means that either there is a mismatch between production and consumption, then frequency will deviate from 50 hertz. For example, if production is less than consumption, then frequency drops or increases? Drops. For example, if frequency is 49.9 hertz, it means that we have the lack of supply. There is a mismatch. And the other way around, when frequency goes beyond 50 hertz, it shows that we have more production than demand. Then downward regulation is needed. So frequency supporting services are any service that help the TSO restore the balance between production and consumption. Clear? And why we call it frequency supporting? Because by activating these resources, the TSO restores the balance, and frequency comes back to 50 hertz. Clear? That's the main category of ancillary service. Then we have voltage supporting services. It's usually local problems, while frequencies are mostly global problems. For example, that might not be the case of low inertia systems, but usually if frequency here is 49.9, also in other side of the country, also in other parts of the Nordics, also the frequency is 49.9, right? So it's a global problem, while voltage problems are usually local, right? What I said about frequency, it's changing also in low inertia systems like Nordics, but well, it's not part of this course. So voltage supporting services, imagine that you have a bus, you have a node in the transmission network that the voltage is different, way different than 1 per unit. Then it means that the TSO needs some services to be activated, and this is mostly by producing or absorbing reactive power. It happens. And as far as I know, usually we don't have market for these services. Usually the TSOs, they have contracts with certain players, with certain generators, for example. While we will see that for frequency supporting services, we have markets. That's why I'm teaching it in this course, Renewables Electricity Markets. And why I'm teaching here, because by having more and more renewables, it's more frequent to not have this balance, to have more imbalances. That's why we need more services, and for that we have markets. The third type of ancillary services that one can think of is black start services. So if the system has a full blackout, so then this black start services help the TSO to restart the system after a blackout, right? And again, as far as I know, there is not necessarily a market. So there might be some bilateral contracts between the TSO and certain generators. So here in this course, I will only focus on frequency supporting services. So when I say ancillary services or reserve, I'm talking about frequency supporting ancillary services. Good. But why we may have mismatch between production and consumption, for which we need activation of frequency supporting services. So at least we can think of 3 reasons. One is forecast errors. Always because of renewables or load, you may not be able to fully forecast what the actual realization of load or wind power or solar power will be. So that's the one reason, big reason. Then it's potential outages. Maybe a generator has a technical failure in real time, so you have a deficit. The third reason, which is more a reason in Denmark, because in many countries plant imbalance is not legal, but in Denmark it's okay, is that you may realize that if you do arbitrage between day ahead and balancing market, or intraday and balancing market, if you on purpose, intentionally cause imbalance, you may earn. But we learned last time that under one price scheme, the gambling, right? If you manage to forecast what the system imbalance direction will be, then you can earn. For example, if you forecast, which is very hard, that the market will be short, it means that there will be less production, and then you cause imbalance by producing more, then you will earn. But can you? Very hard to forecast it. So for these three reasons, you will have imbalances in the system. How big is it? Well, that's a different story. Clear? Good. Now I would like to tell you about different types of frequencies supporting ancillary services. And now you are going to hear about these works that I mentioned. Okay, this is a very famous figure. I saw many reports using this figure, but I took it from an Energinet report prepared by Jalal. So what happens? So this is the frequency. Let's see what happens. Frequency here is 50 hertz. Everything is fine until here. Let's say at this point of time, a disturbance happens. For example, there is an outage of a generator, or the wind farm, a specific wind farm started to produce less than what expected. That's a disturbance. What happens, then the frequency starts to drop. Then the first action that the TSO should do is to, in the first 30 seconds, there should be a service. I will call the service name later. That service should be activated. But the goal of the activation should be prevent the frequency drop from worsening. So for example, now let's say that frequency is 49.9. So we activate our first service to stop dropping. That's the first action. So we call it frequency containment process. Clear? And then the next action should be start restoring and helping frequency back to 50 hertz. And we call it frequency restoration process. So now based on these goals, I'm defining different types of reserves. The first reserve here, which is the fastest one, it's called FCR. I don't like abbreviations, but this is one of the abbreviations like TSO or like DSO you will hear a lot. So sorry, you have to remember it. FCR stands for Frequency Containment Reserve. So here, FCR is relatively fast. So it means that when a disturbance happened, it should be activated right away. Is it manual? No, it's automatic. So if you are providing FCR, you have a measurement of frequency. So whenever you see that frequency is changing, you automatically respond to that. Clear? There is no time to call and say, oh, something happened. No, it's automatic. The reaction time and full response depend on the FCR provider. It can be immediate or take a few seconds. So immediately that the problem happens, or a very short response time should be okay. What is the grid code or specifics of FCR in Denmark. We are going to talk about that soon in the next slides. So FCR is a kind of a, I would say, a terminology in the context of European markets. If you go US or Australia or other parts of the world, instead of FCR, you may hear another words like primary reserve or regulating reserve, mostly primary reserve, right? So primary reserve and FCR, they are almost the same things, though the specifics of these services in different countries might be to some extent different. Clear? The second service for activation after FCR is AFRR. Remember, by activating FCR, just you stopped frequency to drop further. But now frequency is 49.9. You need to restore it back to 50, right? Now that's why you need extra service. Another what's that? Acronym, abbreviation. No, acronym to remember is AFRR. Automatic Frequency Restoration Reserve. Restoration means that it's for restoring frequency, not containing. Automatic is automatic. It means that there is no manual activation, right? So the AFRR, of course, is slower than FCR, but still it's fast. Fast response in 5 to 10 minutes. How is that in Denmark? We are going to talk about it. So potential providers of this service are spinning generators. It means that they are online. They are not offline. You don't need to wait for them to turn on. Or if you have a super fast generator and they can be on very fast, also they might be provided. But again, I have a slide. You will see that what technologies are eligible to produce different services in Denmark. I'll show you. And again, this service in different parts of the world might be known as different words like secondary reserve or operating reserve. The third service or third acronym that you need to remember is MFRR. So frequency restoration reserve is the same as AFRR, but here we have M. It's not automatic, it's manual. So I told you that the balancing price are based on FRR services. So when you hear people, they talk about FRR services, it means that they include both M and A, MFRR and AFRR. Clear? Again, this is a relatively slow service compared to FCR and AFRR. And yeah, the other names, especially in US or other part of the world, they don't call it MFRR. Usually it's called tertiary reserve or replacement reserve. Then we have also another one called reserve replacement process, but not used in Europe. It's more a US kind of reserve. Good. A summary of them. And that's a slide I got from Thomas Dalgas from Energinet. This is what services we have in Denmark. FCR, you see a race car. It's fast. Then AFRR, well, usual car. And MFRR is slow. It's like a truck. So these are the three services we have in Denmark and Europe. FCR automatically stabilizes the frequency and stops the frequency from deviating further. It's for containment. AFRR helps the system to recover from larger imbalances and brings the frequency back to 50 hertz after FCR has stabilized the frequency. So after FCR, we activate AFRR. And eventually, MFRR helps the system to recover from very large imbalances that are not stabilized by the FCR and AFRR activations. So if FCR and AFRR didn't manage to restore frequency to 50 hertz, now it's the time of MFRR. when it happens, when the imbalance is big. So you can see a bit about the specifics of these services in Denmark. So FCR is being activated either immediately or with very short response time. Then it goes to full capacity in 30 seconds and then drops in 15 minutes. Then in 30 seconds, so the response time of AFRR after a deviation happens is maximum 30 seconds. Then goes to full activation. So for example, if you say that I'm selling 1 megawatt AFRR, you are not expected to increase your production right away. No, you have 15 minutes ramp, time for ramping. And then AFRR usually is up to, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes. And then 15 minutes after a problem happens, manually you activate MFRR. Is it clear? Good. But one thing is important. How is the order of these services to be activated? We have two ways, corrective and preventive. Corrective is what I just told you. A disturbance happens, so we are waiting. It's a corrective. We wait. Imbalance happened. Then we activate FCR, then AFRR, if they are not enough, MFRR. Clear? But the best way, or it's also an interesting way, is preventive strategy. It means that if TSO anticipates an imbalance will happen. For example, how? Usually, TSOs, they want every unit to tell the TSO what their schedule is, what is their plan. For example, in both day-ahead and intraday market, in total, you are supposed, based on the market outcome, you are supposed to produce 10 megawatt. Then TSO asks you, update me, how are you going to produce 10 megawatt? And then, based on your schedules, your plan, the TSO might be able to anticipate, likely, with a big probability, we will have imbalance in the next 20 minutes. Then TSO can act proactively, right? And takes a preventive strategy. So by that, then the TSO first can activate MFRR, because you know that the activation time for MFRR is 15 minutes. If you activate them, after 15 minutes, they will start responding. So if you know that in 15 minutes something will happen, so you can activate them now. So actually, this is another figure I got from Thomas. So you will hear his name a lot. He is the head of department in Energinet. So you will see that this is the forecast of Energinet about imbalances in the coming time. Then you see that, if you don't do anything, this will happen. This is the imbalance you're going to have. Then you can start first activating MFRR. Then you see that, the imbalance, the expected imbalance is now less. And then also proactively and preventively, you can activate AFRR. Then there will be small imbalance. And then you can let it to FCR. Am I clear? Fantastic. Yes?
When there's a disturbance in the frequency, is it usually a drop in the frequency, or is it just as usual a rise?
Well, all the data of frequency are publicly available. You can see, how is the... So always the average is 50 hertz, otherwise the TSO doesn't do a good job, right? So, yeah, I think there are both, but at the end, the average is 50 hertz. But I can reword your question in a different question. If frequency drops, we need upward regulation. If frequency increases from 50 hertz, you need downward. If TSO and Energinet expects both deviations happen with the same frequency, let's say, then the TSO will buy services for both directions at the same quantity. But it's not the case. For example, in DK1, TSO is only buying MFRR up. There is no need for down. And in DK2, also Energinet is buying down, but the price is almost zero or very, very low. It means that it's not a big problem. So, when you see the data, you see the frequency after activations. That's why always the standard, the mean is 50 hertz. But if you had a chance to see frequency, if there was no activation of services, then I would say frequency always, most of the times, is below 50 hertz. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, ancillary services in Denmark. Do you know what? This is also another famous figure you may see in a lot of reports. Do you know what's that? Have you seen this figure before? It's Enzoi's figure. What's that? It shows the synchronous grid areas in Europe. So the blue area is continental Europe or Central Europe synchronous grid area. The green one is Nordic synchronous grid area. The purples is the Baltic synchronous grid area. And then one for UK and one for Ireland. So it seems that the whole Europe, the entire Europe, in terms of frequency, they are not synchronous. Does it mean that their frequencies are different? For example, in Europe it's 50 hertz, in Nordic it's something else. Is it? No. Everywhere in Europe, the frequency is 50 hertz, but they are not synchronous. So we are talking about AC system, right? Alternating current. Frequency is 50. It means that every second we have 50 times of cycle of AC power, right? But we have different synchronous areas that they are not synced together. Though frequency is 50 hertz. So for example, I don't know, AC power in one area it should be something like this, while in other one should be not synchronous. Clear? And Denmark is a very special country here in this picture. Why?
It's split into
Yes.
continents of Europe.
Half of Denmark, the eastern part, including Copenhagen, it's part of Nordic synchronous area, while Jutland and Fyn, the other parts of Denmark, they are part of Central Europe or Continental Europe synchronous grid area.
Is North Africa also part of?
North Africa?
It's just it's also blue.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Good. So as I said, DK1 and DK2, they are not part of the same synchronous area. Does it mean that there is no cable between them? There is no power transfer between DK1 and DK2? If you remember from last time we had, in day-ahead market, I showed you that also there is transfer between DK1 and DK2. But how is it possible if they are not synchronous?
It's a DC connection.
They have DC connection. They have DC connections. So that's how the two areas with different synchronous, two synchronous grid areas can be connected through DC lines. Good. As I said, DK1, DK2, they are part of two different synchronous grid areas. And you can imagine that the Nordic one is an area, I don't know if you heard of that word, it's a low inertia system. Why? Because first, geographically, it's smaller. The grid is smaller there compared to Central Europe. And second, there are a high share of renewables here. And that makes the system, the inertia of the system, lower compared to continental Europe. That's why you may say that stabilizing frequency in the Nordic area might be a bit more complex than the blue part. So as I said, Energinet has an interesting position among European TSOs because it operates the system in both synchronous areas. Good. Again, that's another figure I got from Thomas. Thomas, if you're watching this video at some point, thank you. So DK1, DK2. In DK1 connected to continental Europe, we have the services we already talked. FCR, AFRR, MFRR. Also in other countries in continental Europe, in Switzerland, France, Italy, Germany, etc., you have exactly the same services. DK2 is part of Nordic grid. It's a smaller system, higher penetration of renewables. We need more measures to be able to keep the system stable in terms of frequency. That's why the Nordic TSOs, they are buying more services than the other part. So here now we have MFRR, AFRR is the same as the other one. Those specifics might be a bit different, but the concepts are the same. Now you have three new services, FCRD, FCRN, and FFR. FCR, the same abbreviation, Frequency Containment Reserve, N stands for normal situation. FCRD, D stands for disturbance. It means that the situation, the operation of the grid is not normal. We have a big disturbance. FFR stands for Fast Frequency Reserve. So if I tell you that FCR is the fastest service we have in Denmark, it's wrong. The fastest one is FFR, not in DK1, in DK2. Also, I think UK defined a similar services like FFR. Good. This is the last slide I'd like to show you before a break. So as I told you, in DK1, which is part of Central Europe, we have three services, FCR, AFRR, MFRR. And you can see the activation time and blah. In DK2, we have FFR. You can see that it's very fast. It's very fast. Then we have FCRD, FCRD. Then we have FCRN, then AFRR and MFR. You are sitting in a course called Market, Renewables and Electricity Markets. These things doesn't look market. Why I'm teaching you? Why I'm talking about these things? Any idea?
Because it might influence the way they are traded.
Yeah. But the main reason is that I told you about ancillary service markets. Remember? Reserve markets. Which markets? These markets. So for each of these services, there is a market. So, this is the time. This is day D. This is day D minus 1. For every hour, or now we can say for every 15 minutes, in day D, TSO runs or clears reserve market or capacity market for reserve. But are we talking about one market? No, we are talking about various markets, one market per service. So there is AFRR market, there is MFRR market, there is FCR market, there is FCRD market, and so on. So that's why we are talking about markets. So TSO buys the services in advance on D minus 1. And based on the imbalance happened, how large it is it preventive or is it corrective strategy? TSO starts activating them. For FCR, it's automatic. And also you can imagine the energy activation is not that much. You saw it. I mean, the energy activation is not that much. For AFRR, and especially for MFRR, they are energy intensive. When you activate them, there is a considerable amount of energy, right? And that's why the balancing price is used to be based on activation of MFRR services. But now that AFRR is also a big part of imbalance management, now balancing price is going to reflect the energy activation of both MFRR and AFRR. Okay, let's move on. This is another figure I got from Energinet. You can get the report from the link. So here you can see the different specifications or grid codes for different services in DK1 and DK2. But as you see, it's a report from 2021. Well, I didn't try to find the most updated one, but it might be the case that if you look for an Energinet website, you may see that the specifications are a bit different than this one. But just I wanted to show that, okay, for different services, you can see different specifications in terms of the activation time, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, this is the figure I wanted to show you. Again, it's from Energinet. What technologies can provide what services? So let's start, for example, with in DK1. So you can see that electric vehicles or electrolyzers or boilers or heat pumps, they can provide FCR. So if they can provide FCR, it means that they are fast enough to also provide AFRR and MFRR. But for example, in AFRR, you see wind power, wind turbines. So wind turbines, they can provide AFRR, but not FCR. But again, this is from the report in 2021. I guess it's still the same, but might be different. So it's good to check it. And also, you can see the same story in DK2. So for example, in the break, we talked about electrolyzers, P2X assets, and what services they can provide. If it's only and only electrolyzer alone, without being connected to a battery or whatever, then here in DK2, they can provide FCRD and FCRN. Yes, technically they can, but is there a cost benefit there because there is also degradation, blah, blah? That's a different analysis, right? Good. Then I like to a bit focus on FCRD, FCRN, because they are services in DK2. So this is the case for FCRD up. So FCRD up in DK2 and also in Nordics. So the same story in Norway, Sweden, Finland. It's a service for disturbances, right? D stands for disturbances. So it means that we have a big imbalance. And it is the case. We activate FCRD up if the frequency deviates between 49.1 and 49.9. It means that the situation is not normal. There is a big disturbance. So since frequency is below 50, way below 50, then it means that we need upward regulation. So do you have an idea what this linear curve shows? It simply says that if frequency is 49.9, the activation of FCRD up is 0. If frequency is 49.5, the activation of this service is 100,000 full. If, for example, the frequency is 49.7 here, so the activation is 50%. So it means that if you already sold 1 megawatt capacity of FCRD up, if frequency is 50 hertz, no activation. You will not be activated. If frequency is 49.9, you will not be activated. If frequency drops significantly to 49.1, all 1 megawatt of your capacity will be activated. If frequency is 49.7, 0.5 megawatt will be activated. Is it clear? Then FCRD down is opposite. By the way, I forgot to tell. FCRD up, also the down, they are asymmetric products. It means that here, if you provide FCRD up, always you provide upward regulation. If you are a generator, you produce more. If you are a demand, you consume less. The same in FCRD down. It's also asymmetric product. Always you provide down regulation. If you are a generator, you produce less. If you are demand, you produce more. When it happens, when the frequency varies between 50.1 and 50.5, again, it's a big frequency deviation. And since the frequency is about 50, it means that demand is less than production. There is excess of supply. And again, the same story. If frequency is 50.1, your activation is 0. If frequency is 50.5, you are fully activated. If you are in middle, 50.3, half of your reserve will be activated. Clear? But what about the frequency area between 49.9 and 50.1? This is what we have FCRN. So when frequency is between 49.9 and 50.1, it means that the system is in a normal situation. And then we have FCRN. So let me write them. So if frequency is between 50.1 and 49.9 hertz, then FCRN is what to be activated. If frequency is between 49.9 and 49.5, then it's FCRD. It's a disturbance situation, and we need upward regulation. So it's FCRD up. And if frequency is between 50.1 and 50.5, then again it's a disturbance situation, FCRD, and we need downward regulation, FCRD down. So you tell me. Let me find a different color. So FCRD down, is it a symmetric product or asymmetric? Asymmetric means that always you provide either up or down. Symmetric means that you should be able to provide both. So down, is it asymmetric? Yes, it's asymmetric. FCRN, it's symmetric or asymmetric? Symmetric. Because if frequency goes above 50, you provide downward regulation. If frequency goes down up to 49.9, you provide upward regulation. And here again, it's asymmetric. Clear? So here, if you provide 1 megawatt FCRN, you should be ready for both upward and downward. You should be able to provide either extreme cases, 1 megawatt of upward or 1 megawatt of downward. Or it might be something in between. Clear? Also FCRN in DK1, in continental Europe, the same. Okay, there is no these frequency ranges, but you should be ready to provide up or down, depending what the condition of the system is. Good. This is the summary of FCRD up, down, and N, FCRN. So let me challenge you. Let's say that I have a battery, a big battery, and I already sold, I don't know, 1 megawatt of FCRN and 1 megawatt of FCRD up. So 1 megawatt of each. And now frequency is, I don't know, 49.5. 49.5. What will be my activation? What will be my energy activation in terms of megawatt hour or megawatt? So I sold 1 megawatt of FCRN. I sold 1 megawatt of reserve for FCRD up. And now frequency is 49.5. How much? Yeah, tell me a bit loud. So if the frequency is 49.5, it means that I'm fully activated. So 1 megawatt at FCRD up. But also at FCRN, already now frequency is below 49.9, also 1 megawatt here. So my activation is 2 megawatt. Is it clear? But you may decide to only sell FCRD up. If you only sell FCRD up, then your activation will be only 1 megawatt. Are you following me? Clear? So then it's up to you that if you have a battery or electrolyzer, or if you are an EV aggregator, you should see that, okay, which services you want to bid. And in your opinion, which service do you think will be activated more often than others? N. You can imagine FCRN will be activated most, while FCRD up and down will be activated a bit in a rare situations. You don't expect that all the times frequency goes above 50.1 or going below 49.9. Otherwise, the TSO doesn't do a good job. For example, recently in Nordics, FCRD up has been activated a few times, and in all the times, and in all these cases, or most of these cases, the reason was the outage of one of the nuclear power plants in Finland. So something big happened. And you can imagine this is not happening all the times. Yes?
So if you're a generator and you sell to normal,
Yeah?
then you can only go from like 50 to 49.9.
Yeah. Yeah. If you only provide FCRN, then it doesn't matter how bad the frequency is, you will be activated fully for FCRN. Right? Good. This is exactly what you answered. How frequent is the activation of FCRN and FCRD? Marco, my former master student, now my current PhD student, he made this analysis during his master thesis. So you can see the activation of FCRN and D in DK2. Well, just, of course, FCRN is symmetric, but just to be able to show that how often you are being activated in both directions, you can see that all the times FCRN has been activated, either up or down. But FCRD up and down, the activation is almost nothing in this time period, 2021 to 2022. So the activation for FCRD up and down is very rare. And I will show you the next slide. Let me first show you. So remember, FCRD up and down activation is rare. This is the historical data, right? Okay, it's not very updated. Maybe you can update that and share with me the updated pictures. Then I'll put yours. This is the prices for FCRD up and down in the capacity market. So it's the unit is euro per megawatt. And you can see here FCRD up, the yellow one, and down, blue one, prices in DK2 in the time period of 2022 up to last October. And Gustav and Emil, again, for their master thesis, they plotted this. Yeah, ignore this gray area. It's for some analysis that you don't need to know here. So what happened is that the Nordic TSOs in February 2024, they changed market mechanism from pay-as-bid to uniform. Remember the first lecture we talked about pay-as-bid and uniform. And you see that after changing the market condition, the market pricing method, the price increased a lot. And even before, the price was high. And what this price is, because in pay-as-bid we don't have uniform price, right? This price is just volume-weighted average price. While here, after February on, it's a uniform price, one price for everyone. But then, let's say from June, July, the price declined a lot to become almost or close to zero. So what I can tell you that there were a lot of small companies In the last years, they bought a small battery or even a bit bigger battery and tried to only trading in the FCRD markets. And especially they earned a lot in this period. And why it's so good for batteries? Because the price is very high, or price used to be very high, while here we saw that the activation was very rare. So always just to be ready, you earned a lot. Right? Of course, you should be qualified to be able to participate in this market, right? But then, now you see that the prices declined a lot. So at this time period, there were several companies calling me, Jalal, do you think the price still will be very low, or we will get back to golden time of high prices? And my answer is, sorry, I don't know. But now all those companies, or most of them, they are trying to find alternative markets. What market do you think is alternative for them to trade their flexibility? We talked about that. I heard the word. Balancing? Yeah. Intraday. So now several companies, they think more seriously about intraday market and participate there because FCRD market is not as good as used to be in terms of business opportunities. Good. So we talked about different services in Denmark. So now let me talk about reserve market stage. Good. Why I showed this? It's an ugly table. It's from a table that also I'm one of the authors. But it's from 2022. It's from 2022. And you can see that in Denmark, for different services, there are different markets at different points of time. So for example, for MFRR, AFRR, they used to be a market in months ahead and another one in D-1. Or for FCR in DK1, a market D-1 at 8 o'clock. Or FCR and FCRD, they used to be two markets, D-2, and another one, D-1 after day-ahead market. And if I remember correctly, this market used to be optional. What does it mean? The TSO buys the needs here. If the TSO realizes that, okay, still needs more FCR and to buy, then this market there will be. And then as you see that time, the FCR and FCRD market pricing, the pricing mechanism used to be pay as bid, while UP is uniform pricing. So, but now it's, since February 2024, it's uniform pricing. But as I told you, this is outdated. And to be honest, this, if you want to keep this table updated all the times, you have to keep it updated, right? And I didn't manage to update it. Maybe you can help me, right? But what I'm trying to say is that there are different markets being cleared at different points of time, and I'm only talking about capacity market for reserve. About balancing market, we talked in the last lecture. And then think how tough the bidding strategy problem could be. So for example, if you have a battery or if you have any flexible resource, then you will say, okay, there are at least 5, 6 markets ahead of me. Also, I can go participate in the intraday market. I can go and participate in day-ahead market. I can go and participate in balancing market. I can submit voluntary bids. And also, there are several markets for me if I'm pre-qualified to participate in those markets. So in a period of 2 days, you should bid, you should place in different markets at different points of time with a lot of uncertainties. You don't know what the price will be. You don't know how much activation will happen. And you can imagine how complex decision-making problem is. And that's why the second part of this course is not from system perspective, it's from stakeholders' perspective. Are you following me? Good. Okay, activation stage. So we discussed that, remember, right? So we have capacity market for reserve in D-1 for different markets, for MFRR, for AFRR, for FCR, for FCRD. For different markets, we have different capacity markets in D-1. And then we are talking, for example, for a specific time period of 15 minutes interval now in day D. Right? And then if you have accepted bids, or if you would like to place voluntary bids, you have to bid it up to 25 minutes ahead of time. So now let's focus on here, on the activation stage. So now for AFRR, here in the activation stage, also there is a European market. It's called Picasso. Picasso is standing for Platform for International Coordination of Automated Frequency Restoration and Stable System Operation. I think they made this name to be able to make the acronym, Picasso. It's a market for activation, energy activation of AFRR. This is a text I got from Enzoi. This is the link. Is the implementation project endorsed by all TSOs through the Enzoi Market Committee to establish the European platform for the exchanging of balancing energy from frequency restoration reserves with automatic activation, or AFRR platform. And it's based on which guideline? So here, that's again a figure I got from Enzoi. As of November 2024, you can see what countries joined Picasso. And among Nordics is Denmark. Denmark is part of Picasso now. So what it means is that now you got Nordic TSOs and Energinet, they bought AFRR capacities, of course. But now in the activation stage, they have access to AFRR capacities. Not only they bought locally, but also other AFRR capacities available in all European countries. Is it clear? So Picasso is a market for AFRR in energy activation stage, or energy activation market. We have another market, again, European market, European platform called MARI. It stands for Manually Activated Reserve Initiative. It seems a simpler acronym. It's the same, but not for AFRR, for MFRR. For MFRR. So again, TSO, Nordic TSOs, and again at others, they can buy MFRR reserves locally or in a shared manner. But when in the activation stage, they have access to all resources, not only they already bought in their own country, but also all resources in the European platform. Again, this is for optimal resource allocation. The same story we had in European day-ahead market we discussed. Again, I'm repeating, MARI for MFRR, and again, MARI, like Picasso, is a platform in the activation stage. Which countries are involved? Not Nordics yet. Good. Another figure I like to show you is from NBM, Nordic Balancing Model. Yeah, I'm telling you a lot of names, NBM. So NBM is the shared initiative of Nordic TSOs. So the Nordic TSOs, they try to coordinate with each other before joining European platforms. Is it clear? So if you go Nordic Balancing Model, you will see this figure. For example, you can see that Finland joined Picasso in 2025, right? Or for example, you can see that Denmark joined to Picasso. So Finland is going to join, not yet, but already Energinet Denmark joined Picasso. So the idea is that eventually all Nordics are going to join Mari, if I find it out here. So all Nordic TSOs are going to join Mari. But first, they like to have their own joint platform before joining Mari, which is a European platform. I don't know if you follow energy news or not. Last week in my LinkedIn, there were a lot of posts about this news. And it happened just 3 days ago. Now all Nordic TSOs, they have an automated joint MFRR energy market. So it means that Energinet doesn't only activate its own MFRR resources, can also activate MFRR resources from Sweden or whatever. And this is going to be automated. Still it's MFRR, but the activation of the bits is automatic. And there are a lot of some challenges because now we have flow-based market coupling, if you remember, sensitive critical lines inside. So when we pick MFRR reserve to be activated in one country, we have to make sure that the transmission lines in other zones will not be in a problem, something like that. So a lot of initiatives are being happening. Good. Then this is another figure from Energinet. This is kind of the summary. DK1, DK2. DK1, we have FCR, AFRR, MFRR. DK2, we have FFR, FCRD, FCRN, AFRR, MFRR. For each market, for each service, we have 2 markets. Capacity market, here, to buy services, to buy megawatt. And then activation, energy market. This is the second market, energy market. So, for example, you can see that in DK1, FCR and Energinet is part of FCR cooperation, European capacity market. In AFRR and MFRR, for example, that's what I like to highlight. AFRR, MFRR, already DK1 is part of Picasso since Q2, quarter 2 of 2024. While for MFRR, DK1 is going to be part of Mari in 2026. And the same story for DK2. In DK2 FFR, there is only a national market. By the way, why there is nothing for energy market for FCR, FFR, and FCRD and FCRN? These cells are empty. Why? Yes?
Because DK2 and DK1 are parts of different synchronous areas.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that there is a market for AFR and MFRR in energy activation, in activation stage, but it's not the case for FCR and FFR. Yeah, because when you activate FCR, the energy activation is very small, very insignificant. So you don't pay people for their activation because it's very, very small. You only pay for their reserve. But for AFRR, MFRR, when you activate them, they are energy-intensive services. There is a significant, or it could be significant, energy activation. So if you provide AFRR, MFRR, you will be paid not only for your capacity, but also you will be paid for energy activation. It's the case for AFRR, MFRR, not FCR, not FFR. And that's why these cells are empty. Is it clear? Very good. Outlook. Another report from Energinet. Outlook means that how Energinet sees the increasing need for ancillary services in Denmark. Why? Because we are going to have more and more renewables. More renewables, more imbalances. More imbalances, more need for ancillary services. So, for example, you see in this figure that Energinet expects or projects to have they need 33% more for MFRR up in decade 2 by 2030, right? And you can see the other numbers as well. For example, for the case of MFRR up in decade 1, they increase in terms of the need will be 50%. Yeah, I don't want to go detail of this, but here what Energinet did is that for different services, now 2025, in the next 5 years and the next 15 years, how much Energinet envisions for having the higher need for ancillary services under 3 scenarios of conservative, middle, and ambitious. Okay, so in different scenarios, how Energinet envisions the increasing need for ancillary services. Good. So I talked for more than 1 hour just to reach this point. Optimization problem for clearing the reserve market. And when I say reserve market, I'm talking about this capacity market for reserve. Okay? And this is exactly your last step in assignment 1. So after this, you can fully write your report for assignment 1, though deadline is in 2 weeks, right? So you have a lot of time. I hope you agree. Good. A very simple example. Again, we have wind farm 1, 2 generators, conventional generators, G1, G2, and 1 demand. For simplicity, we put away the network. Imagine that. So far, just to make our life simple, and you are going to do the same in your report, we call it reserve market as a generic term. But you can see it as a MFR market, AFR market. So in reality, there is one optimization problem like this for each service. But here, we call it general, reserve market. And imagine that for that reserve market, for example, it could be MFRR, Energinet envisions or sets the requirement. Say for a specific hour, TSO Energinet says that upward reserve requirement is 40 megawatt and downward is 35. So always in the reserve market, Energinet or the TSO needs to come as the only buyer and sets the demand. Here the demand is 40 and 35 for upward and downward. Good. Remember timeline. D-1 before day-ahead market, we have capacity market for reserve. Then we have day-ahead market. Then in this period, the flexibility provider, the reserve provider, here provides the first activation price, and in this time period, the flexibility, the reserve provider can update the activation price up to 25 minutes ahead of time. And here the time granularity is 1 hour, but it's going to be 15 minutes. So let's say that this is input data. This is what we receive as offers from generators. Here we see that the wind farm W1 and D1, they say that, okay, we are inflexible. We are not interested in providing reserve. Okay. In this case, G1 says that I can produce, you can book me up to 5 megawatt in either direction of up and down, while G2 says, no, okay, you can book me up to 50 megawatt in both directions. Then their offer price is €1 per megawatt, not megawatt hour, megawatt. It's a capacity market. €1 per megawatt for G1 and €2 per megawatt for G2. What do these offer prices represent? Are they fuel cost or something like that? No. It's simply opportunity cost. Can you tell me what kind of opportunity cost do we have here? Yes?
Costs that emerge from doing alternative B instead of alternative A, for instance.
Yeah. For example, if you book G1 by 5 megawatt, imagine that the capacity of G1 is 100 megawatt. Now you book it for 5 megawatt, so 5 megawatt for upward. So now what is the maximum quantity that G1 can go to day-ahead market? 95. So opportunity cost is any opportunity that G1 loses in future markets by participating in the reserve market. Is it easy to estimate opportunity cost? No, never. It's always hard because it's not really sensible. You don't know what will happen in future markets, how much exact business you are going to have in future markets. Okay? Good. So we can write 10 PhD theses about estimation of opportunity cost. It's not easy. But the reserve providers should come up with some numbers. Maybe they can learn from historical data. Good. So now we are in capacity market for reserve. Last step of your assignment. This is the optimization problem. Maybe you can check it for a minute and see what do we have here, what we have there. Is there anyone who would like to help me to interpret this optimization? Yes, please.
Yeah, the objective function is about minimizing the regulation costs of the system as such with the opportunity costs of each participant.
Yes.
Then there are the equations, making sure that we have enough downward and upward regulation capacities as such in the whole market.
Very good.
And the other inequalities are about the given constraints of provided upward and downward regulation capacities.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Yes. Perfect. So you have 4 variables. So RG1 down, it means that how much we book G1 for downward reserve, and so on. Then the objective function, exactly as you said, is either to buy upward or downward, TSO should pay. So this is the the procurement cost of reserve for both upward and downward. So the cost of buying upward and downward from G1, and the cost of buying downward and upward from G2, according to their opportunity cost they submitted. Then we say that, okay, we have 2 resources, G1 and G2. For down, I want to buy 35. Who said 35? TSO. The same for upward. You have 2 resources. You have to buy to get from 2 resources in total 40 megawatt upward reserve. Then again, dual variable shows you price under uniform pricing. And then you have the constraints. For example, already G1 said I can produce downward reserve up to 5 megawatt. So the capacity is between 0 and 5, and so on. Is it clear? So if you solve this optimization problem, you will get this result. Actually, it's easy when you can solve it by hand. So whenever I put a star, it means that they are optimal values. Now they are parameters. Now they are outcomes of the optimization problem. And you can imagine that G1 is a cheaper resource, so you buy their reserves at full capacity. Then you buy the rest of the service from G2 because it's more expensive than G1. So you buy 30 megawatt from G2 down, and you buy 35 up from G2. So for up, 35 from G2, 5 from G1, in total 40. What is the price? In both of them, the last generator dispatched or allocated for reserve is G2, and the corresponding offer price is 2. So the price of up and down for the both is €2 per megawatt. But remember, in the figure I showed you for FCRD up and down, there were hours that the price was like 2,000, 3,000 euro per megawatt. So what I'm trying to say is that €2 per megawatt is on the very low side. Is it clear? Good. So how much G1 and G2 receives? G1 sells 5 megawatt of upward reserve at price 2 and 5 megawatt of downward reserve at price 2. So in total, G1 receives 20. Similarly, G2 receives 130 euro. Who pays them? TSO. TSO buys the services. So TSO pays 150. Good. How does TSO pay? Does TSO have this 150 euro? Who pays this 150 euro at the end?
Final customer.
It's us. Grid tariffs. Again, check your bill. There is energy cost, there is grid tariffs, there is tax. Grid tariffs, part of it goes to TSO. TSO use grid tariffs for different purposes, for grid expansion, blah, 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 but also for buying reserve. Yeah, a Zoom reminder that I have to teach. Good. Now let's see that, okay, now we cleared reserve market. Reserve market, we cleared that. But the next market, if you remember, is the day-ahead market. Day-ahead market is being cleared after reserve market. Let's see that how the reserve market impacts that market, day-ahead market. So now imagine that again, we have 4 players. Wind offers 20 megawatt, because 20 megawatt, it's forecast, available forecast in day-ahead stage at price 0. G1 and G2, they are offering 50 and 100. Yeah, this is actually their capacity. And 90 is the demand of D1. Now we are in the day-ahead market. Reserve market has already been cleared. And this is day-ahead market clearing. What do you see different here than the model you already have for day-ahead market? Do you see something different? Yes? The capacity constraints for who? For G1 and G2. Here, there is a lower bound and upper bound. Lower bound is no longer 0. Upper bound is no longer capacity. Right? So, the 4 variables of the day-ahead schedules of 4 participants, day-ahead price. But here we have, so star means now it's a parameter. It's not a variable. It's the optimal value that we obtained from reserve market. So lower bound is how much we schedule these 2 generators for down regulation, because they should be able to reduce their production up to their down regulation. And their capacity now is, their upper bound is their capacity minus upward. For example, if G1 is provided 5 megawatt of upward, now the maximum production, maximum offer that this G1 can place in day-ahead market is 50 minus 5 is 45 megawatt. Is it clear? I think I know what your question is. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, R is a variable here now.
No. R parameter. When you have a star, it means parameter. Okay, so as I said, the lower bound is now 5, upper bound is 45. But remember, this is the remark I like to make. Who clears reserve market? TSO. Who clears day-ahead market? Nord Pool via Euphemia. So does Nord Pool or Euphemia know that we as a TSO in Denmark already booked 5 megawatt of generator G1 for upward and downward? No. They are different entities. So it's the responsibility, that's what I like to say, it's the responsibility of G1 to make sure that it will be scheduled at least 5 megawatt. How? For example, by bidding at a very low price. Am I clear? And it's the responsibility of G1 to not bid all 50 megawatt in day-ahead market, because now G1 knows that 5 megawatt of its capacity has already booked in the reserve market. Clear? So it's G1's responsibility to make sure that this 5 megawatt will be scheduled in day-ahead market. For example, by bidding very low price. So if you saw that a generator offers at very high price, but for a part of its capacity it offers at a low price, the reason might be that that generator is already committed to provide downward regulation. Good. Imagine that G1 already committed 5 megawatt of down, but in day-ahead market, though offered a very low price, but it wasn't scheduled. What should we do? Intraday market. Then you should go and buy. You have to make sure that you have that 5 megawatt. If you can't secure it in day-ahead market, go intraday market. Clear? And the same story for generator G2. Good. Interesting thing is that now if we clear day-ahead market, remember the lower bound of G2 is 30 megawatt. Let me remember from previous slides. Yeah, G2 downward reserve is 30 megawatts. So G2 should be scheduled 30 megawatt in the day-ahead market. So now that's what we do. We do here. Yes. So G2, because the lower bound is 30, so G2's schedule in day-ahead market is 30. G1, the lower band is 20, but G1 is being scheduled 40 because it's a cheaper generator. 40 plus 30 plus of 20 of the wind farm, it supplies demand. Do you see something interesting here? Yes?
Even if G2 is dispatching the prices, the marginal producer is G1.
Exactly. G1 is a cheaper generator, but is not fully scheduled. The full capacity of G1 is 45, while its schedule is 40. So if you have 1 megawatt more to buy, if you increase demand to 91, this is G1 who will be scheduled. G2 is also scheduled 30 because the lower bound is 30. So interesting thing is that, remember, what is the market price? If you increase demand by 1 megawatt, who is going to produce that? And here is G1. So the market price is 20, while generator G2 is dispatched. And generator G2's offer price was 30. Interesting, right? G2 offers at price 30, but scheduled. Yeah. So it means that here G2 may get loss in day-ahead market. But overall, not, because G2 is going to also earn from reserve market. Good. So the lesson here is that the generators should be careful at what price they are bidding in the day-ahead market if they have already been committed in the downward reserve market. Yeah, again, this is the day-ahead market outcomes. W1, G1, G2, all of them, they receive money while demand D1 pays. Good. And now we go to the last market. The last market is the balancing market. Here, right? Here. Also, we learned that in the last lecture, last week. And now this is the optimization problem. I think this is almost the same as what you learned last week. So, objective function is minimizing the activation cost. The terms with positive sign, they denote upward regulation, while those with negative is downward because they pay back the TSO. You have a balancing constraint, and then you have 5 constraints. For 4 of them, the upward bound is RG1 up star. What are they? From which optimization problem are they coming? From the capacity market. And now, so the whole idea, the whole point is that the last week that I told you that, okay, this is the maximum capacity they can offer. You can activate them in the reserve market, in the balancing stage. These values are coming from capacity market. So this is how the three markets are interrelated. Is it clear? So balancing variables, balancing price, and 4 upper bounds that are coming from capacity market. Good. And in this specific case, if the imbalance is 15 deficit, so we need upregulation. So you activate G1 by 5 megawatt, G2 by 10 megawatt. You don't activate D1. You don't activate downward. And the price is 33 because it's the activation price of the most expensive generator activated, which is 33 euro per megawatt hour. Good. So W1 pays, G1 receives, G2 receives. Why W1 pays? Because it's the one who creates imbalance. Good. So I told you in one of the lectures in past that one of the differences of European markets and US markets is the way they clear energy and reserve markets. So just I like to reminder that in European markets, you have 3 stages. You have reserve market or capacity market for reserve. TSO clears that at the time before day-ahead market clearing. Then there is a day-ahead market being cleared by market operators, and then there is a balancing stage that TSO takes care of that. In US-style markets, the balancing stage is the same, but we have one joint platform for buying reserve and energy at the same time. And that's what we call co-optimization of energy and reserve. Why? Because there's only one entity there called ISO, Independent System Operator, who takes care of everything. While in Europe, there are transmission system operator and market operator as separate entities. Okay? This was a reminder. Good. Any questions so far? Yes?
Just for the optimization problem, doesn't that mean that the reserve market will always be used first? And then instead of
In Europe or US?
in Europe?
In Europe, yes. The priority goes for reserve. So first, reserve market. TSO buys whatever it needs. Whatever left goes to day-ahead market, intraday market harvest. Good. So, the last part of my lecture today is about Energinet initiatives. I think Energinet has very interesting initiatives in terms of balancing. I like to share some of them with you, and hopefully you will like that. And maybe it will trigger you with some research ideas. Maybe you like to do your master thesis on that, or there are interesting things happening, going on in Denmark and also in general Nordic countries, Nordic TSOs. So I'm going to tell you about 3 initiatives. I'll not go in deep, just I'll try to explain you the concept, the idea. Okay? You ready? Whew. Text. It's not my text. I copied from one of Energinet reports. And you will see this text again in my last lecture in a few weeks. Could you please read this text coming from this Energinet report and try to interpret what it means? You have a minute. So be ready of this kind of text when you go industry. Any interpretation? Trying to explain it in with easy words? Yes? Yes, if you want, or, yeah. First you and then you.
I think they try to ensure that the projections they receive have a 90% chance or like certainty that they are true. And if they're not true, it should also be kind of a insurance that it's not a complete fallout from their side as market participant.
Very good. And you?
Yeah, I understand that if you're scheduled, if you're dispatched in the reserve market, you should be 90%. You should have a probability 5% or more to have your capacity available.
Very good. Do you have the same interpretation, or any? Yes, you have the same. Good. Exactly. So Energinet says that if I buy P90 requirement, that's what I named, and now Thomas has also used that name. Okay, but now we call it P90 requirement. Let's say that here Energinet bought from someone, for example, EV aggregator. Let's say from EV aggregator, we bought 1 megawatt of upward reserve. Upward reserve means that for EV aggregator, they have to decrease their consumption when activated. So this P90 requirement says that the probability of the successful activation, when I activate you, you successfully respond to my activation, should be 90% at least. So how to know that? I mean, because you activate this EV aggregator not only one time, so it means that in all the times, for example, in the period of 3 months, Energinet looks how much or how frequent this EV aggregator offered reserve capacity, and then to what percentage of the times that reserve was really available. And if it is at least 90% of the times, then EV aggregator will be kept qualified to participate in reserve market. But if it's more than 10% of the times that the reserve placed is not available in reality, that flexibility provider will be excluded, will be kicked out from the qualified reserve providers, and then this EV aggregator or whatever should go through again with all paperwork with Energinet to be qualified to participate in reserve market. Is it clear? Yes.
And what if they have the available capacity, but their activation price was higher and they were not activated?
Yeah, so far please accept with me because a part of your assignment 2 will be on that, so we don't need to spoil it at this moment, right? So, but why do you think Energinet has this P90? Why not P100? P100 is easy, right? Saying that if you bid, you should have it. Simple. Why TSO should make the life hard for itself by making P90? Because when you activate, it might be available, it might not. And then if not, Energinet should go and find another source. Why not P100? Yes?
Maybe to include renewables.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are more and more stochastic flexible units. For example, electric vehicle aggregator. It's a flexible but stochastic unit. The aggregator doesn't know in advance what will be the exact baseline of consumption. Or wind turbine or wind farm doesn't know exactly what the production baseline will be. So if the exact consumption or production is unknown, how much reserve you can provide is also unknown. So if you if you want flexible units to be part of your reserve market, you should enable it. You should facilitate the market participation. And P90 is one of ways to facilitate these resources to be integrated in the market. Is it clear? Why P90? Why not 89? Why not 91? Well, you should ask Thomas. There might be an optimization there also. But making P90 instead of P100, in my opinion, is a good move. So, yeah, this is what we discussed. And that's how I interpret it, which is exactly what you two said. Are you ready for the second initiative? The second one is dynamic reserve dimensioning. Dynamic reserve dimensioning. In the example I gave you, I told you, I said 30 megawatt of down and 40 megawatt of up. And these are the numbers that TSO come up. How much reserve we need to buy. Fixed numbers. So the easy way for Energinet is to say that, okay, all over the hours of the year, I always buy this amount of up, and always I buy this amount of down. MFRR up, MFRR down. AFRR up, AFRR down. We call it static sizing. Easy job. But what Energinet is trying to do is to go towards dynamic reserve dimensioning, saying that, no, let me forecast how much reserve I need, and then maybe I need to buy this rather than this. Is it clear? So dynamic sizing or dynamic dimensioning. So a bit more information. And please also listen carefully, because this, what I'm explaining, is also important for the next, the third initiative I like to explain. So Energinet buys, for example, for every, this is DK1, sorry, DK2, DK1. Energinet buys this amount of reserve, for example, reserve up or reserve down. But this contains two parts, the brown part and green. Brown, it's called reference incident. So for example, a reserve for the largest single failure. For example, if the biggest generator is out, how much reserve we need to replace it. You can imagine that all the times it's fixed. But the second component, the green one, is called normal incident, NI. It's reserved for frequent imbalances. Who causes imbalances? Renewables, load, etc. Right? So when I say 40 megawatt, you need to buy 40 megawatt. The total is 40, but maybe 20 is green, 20 is brown. It's Energinet who decides how much reserve to buy for RI part, for reference incidents, and how much reserve to buy for green part, for imbalances. We buy in a capacity market, and we activate them in the balancing stage. Of course, for each part, you may buy different, for each area, you may buy different amounts. And of course, as I said, under Mari or Picasso or Nordic platforms, you can also do sharing. Is it clear? Good. As I said, the brown part is usually fixed, but what can be changed is the green part. So Energinet can forecast how much imbalance we may see tomorrow. And then based on your forecast, you can adjust your green bar and buy more or less reserve for every hour or for every 15 minutes of the interval of the next days. Clear? So Energinet is working with a consultancy company called Insight. It's a Belgian company. Also, I'm working with Energinet, hopefully, with some PhD students. So the idea is that for every single reserve, MFRR up, MFRR down, AFRR up, AFRR down, instead of buying a fixed value, static, how much to buy in a dynamic manner, time variant manner. Is it clear? So that's another initiative of Energinet, dynamic reserve dimensioning. So what Energinet tries is to forecast this, which is the green, which is the how much reserve to buy. So this is the reference incidence, but also you may have some sharing reserve from neighboring countries, for example, from neighboring bidding zones. Then how much how much imbalance may happen? That's stochastic. You have to forecast it. Then you have netting and voluntary bits. Also, voluntary bits may come. So more voluntary bits to come, less reserve you need to buy. So also how much voluntary bits will come is stochastic. So eventually, TSO needs to buy this amount of reserve. So Energinet is using some machine learning techniques to forecast that, and still there is room to improve it. Is it clear? Good. Are you ready for the last initiative of Energinet? The last things, and I like, this is my favorite initiative, to be honest. So, remembering in the examples I gave you, I said that TSO should pay 150 euros, and then I asked you who pays, and you said you pay. Us, we are paying, right? Okay. So, this is, for example, the capacity market. So this is how much TSO needs to buy for a reference incident, for the biggest, largest failure. And then on top, the Energinet buys for imbalances. So this is the total reserve Energinet buys for reference incidences and normal incidences. And how much you have to buy for imbalances is stochastic. Let's say that Energinet decided to buy this. It's, for example, 400 megawatt. And then this is the supply curve of reserve providers. And now, because of the imbalance, those who create imbalance, now not only Energinet buys more reserve, but also the reserve price increased from here to here. Do you see what I'm saying? Very good. So, the reference incidence, it's fine. There might be a big failure, and if that failure happens, we will penalize the generator who failed. So there is a responsible person for that. But for imbalances, there is a lot of wind farms or whatever, or loads, they cause imbalance. Maybe they cause imbalance on purpose. Who knows? Now also Energinet buys reserve for them. Of course, if they help the system or not, they will get more earning or less in the balancing market under one price scheme. But again, Energinet buys more reserve, pays for who? For those who will cause imbalance in future. The question is, why us should pay for that? You see the point? Why not charge those who cause imbalance for reserve that Energinet bought? Clear? That's what Energinet calls as an idea of full cost balancing. So full cost balancing is, this is again a text I got from Energinet. Energinet aims to implement a polluter. Polluter means the one who causes imbalance. Polluter pays zero-sum game to ensure that the true cost of imbalances, not only the energy activation cost, are covered by the originators of imbalances. Is it clear? So, the whole idea is this. For example, imagine in a certain hour, the imbalance is this. This is the imbalances we see. And Energinet says, okay, imagine we have 3 BRPs, 3 market players, all of them caused imbalance. The BRP A, for example, generator A, it caused imbalance, but in a favor of the system. But then we have 2 other generators or market participants or wind farms, loads, whatever, they caused imbalance in the same direction of system imbalance. So now the total system imbalance is this green plus this green plus this blue, which is in the other opposite side. So the total system imbalance is the yellow one. So now Energinet says that blue is helping me. It's a desired imbalance. So I'm not going to penalize it. Energinet says that maybe I paid 1,000 euro more to buy reserve, to buy NI. So in a usual condition, I should buy 100 megawatt, but now I bought 200, 100 for imbalances. And say for that, TSO paid 1,000 euro. Now TSO says that this 1,000 euro should be shared between BRP B and C. Not BRP A, because its imbalance was in the favor of the system. Are you seeing the point? So if this happens, it's still under implementation. Then, when you cause imbalance, you will think twice. Because you will pay for energy activation, and you will pay for the capacity, your share of the capacity that TSO bought in advance for killing imbalances. So my final word is that this is an amazing idea. Because remember, last week we discussed about one price versus two price. We said two price kills any motivation of causing imbalance, yes, but we didn't like it because it's a market intervention. But now with this full cost balancing idea, we stick to one price scheme. Still people may have incentives to do arbitrage, to cause imbalance. But now we say, okay, in a fair manner, also you are responsible to pay back what we paid for reserve procurement, and we did it because of you, because you, for example, caused 50% of the imbalances in the system. This will make the polluter, the one who caused imbalance, to think twice. Would I like to do that? So for me, it's a market-based solution to discourage speculations for planned imbalances, in contrast to the two-price balancing scheme, which was a market intervention. So I think it's a good idea. And I'm really excited to see how Energinet will implement that. Good. All the story about ancillary service markets and Kahoot. So as I said, there are 12 questions. Okay, let's get started. Very good. The majority found the right answer. The capacity market for reserve is cleared by the TSO at the time before the day-ahead market clearing. Of course, this is the case in Europe. Very nice. So Uplink leading. Second quiz. Very good. Again, the majority find the right choice. FCR among these three is fastest, and then AFRR, and then MFRR. Now 3 is leading. Quiz number 3. Wow. Very fast response. Very good. Yes, DK1 is Jutland and Food. It's connected to Central Europe, while DK2 is Schieland and it's connected to Nordic area. Still train. Leading quiz number 4. Very good. Yes, FCRN here is the only product which is symmetric. It means that you should be able to increase or decrease. FCRD up and down, they are asymmetric. Really good. We have a K-ring castle. Very nice. Quiz 5. Ah. Very good. Yes, blue is correct. Very nice. So let's see. Very good. Let's go to quiz number 6. Very good. Yellow is correct. Let me explain. We discussed a bit about that in the course. So 1 megawatt FCRN, 1 megawatt FCRD up. Frequency is 49.7. It's below 49.9. So it means that FCRN is fully activated. So 1 megawatt there. Then frequency is 49.7. It's exactly in the middle of 49.5 and 49.9. So it means that half of your capacity will be activated. So 1 plus 0.5, 1.5 in total. So it's the yellow one. Good. Matthew now is leading. Quiz 7. Very good. The only service being activated manually is MFRR, so blue is the correct one. Matthew leading. Quiz number 8. Yeah, yellow is correct. Marie, M stands for MFRR. And Picasso, A stands for AFRR. So it's either red or yellow. And remember, we discussed Marie and Picasso. They are European platforms in the activation stage. So it's the yellow one, which is the correct answer. Willy Boy, leading. Quiz 9. So what's the payment to this generator? Very good. The majority found the right answer. So 2 megawatt in the capacity market, the price is 15. So the payment is 15 times 2 is 30 euro. In day-ahead market, 10 megawatt at price 30, so the payment is 300. So far 330. And then there is 1 megawatt of activation at the balancing price of 40. So 40 euro, 330 plus 40 is 370. So it's the green choice. So now Matthew is leading. Quiz 10. Yes, all. P90 requirement, dynamic reserve dimensioning, and full cost balancing, they are different initiatives that Energinet is pushing forward. So all. Willy Boy comes to the first stage. Quiz 10. No, 11, sorry. Very good, very good. Yes, the red is correct. Under full cost balancing idea, those who cause imbalance, and Energinet calls them polluter, they have to pay for energy activation price, whatever. And also in the capacity market, they will be charged if they are not helping the system. Very good. So still Willy Boy. And final quiz. It's a tricky question. Very good, very good. Today you listened very well. I'm very happy. Yes, BRP1 will not be charged because it helps the system. Then BRP3, they cost different, proportionally different, so their share will not be equal. Actually, one of them causes 40% of the imbalance, the other one 60%. So that's why red is correct. BRP1 charge, the charging to, or invoice to BRP1 is 0. For the other BRP is 4,000 and 6,000. And by that, in total 10,000, TSO will be fully reimbursed. So that's why we call it some polluter, some zero gain. Good. Let's see who won. Very nice. Matthew second. Willy Boy. Willy Boy got the first stage. If I remember correctly, Willy Boy is a team from EPFL. Could you please confirm in the chat box? Willy Boy is not from here, right? So you may write me in the chat box. Yes, he is at EPFL. So Paul. So Paul got the first stage. Good. Thank you so much. We start the Q&A now.